As you might know, I spend quite a lot of time teaching pickleball to players, and sometimes these are brand new players, and sometimes they're more experienced players. Sometimes they're even really strong players who want to sort of get to that next level. And while there's different drills and activities you can do for players at different levels, there's one that I think is really, really great for pickleball players of all levels, and that's called throw pickleball. Throw pickleball is just like it sounds. You throw the pickleball back and forth over the net. And my preferred way of doing this is in sort of close quarters, when you're up near the non-volley zone, because that's kind of like dinking, right? And it sort of reflects what happens when you're up near the kitchen. So let's talk about why throw pickleball can be so effective. First, it's really important to remember that pickleball isn't mainly a game about hitting the ball. Sure, it involves hitting the ball, but mainly it's about chasing the ball. You can have the nicest swing in the world, but if you can't set up to the ball, if you can't get in position, you can't really use it. And often what happens is when you put a pickleball paddle in someone's hands, it's very easy for them to get distracted by it and to forget about the importance of moving because now they're really focused on hitting. So one of the things I like to do is take the paddle out of the player's hands. This makes them focus on how they receive the ball and how they set up for it. And that is the fundamentals of pickleball. And what's really great about throw pickleball is that you can adjust the game depending on what outcomes you're trying to get, as well as the skill level of the players that you're working with. Let me show you an example. Here I'm working with 3 brand new players. This is their first time playing pickleball. And we noticed that when they were well set up to the ball, they did a pretty good job of hitting it. The trouble was they couldn't often get to the right place at the right time. And so what we did is we took the paddles out of their hands and played a little game where they tossed the ball back and forth underhand. We did this in a pretty progressive way. I asked them to catch the ball with 2 hands. And this is important because if they use 2 hands to catch the ball, it means that they can't reach for it, that they actually have to get close to the ball, which they would want to do when playing a dink anyway. Notice how you can adjust the challenge by moving the player a little more to the left or to the right. The other thing to notice is how much fun these players are having. This is the right amount of challenge for them, and they enjoyed it. You can also increase the degree of difficulty if you have a more skilled player, someone who moves better. Here's an example of me working a player back and forth, forcing her to move more. You should be able to tell by now how much this looks like high-quality dinking. Even though they're not playing with paddles, the movement reflects what happens in a real game, or what should happen in a real game. As well as this being a cooperative activity, you can adjust it to be a competitive one. I like to make it where the goal is to win the point, and the way you do that is by forcing the other person to drop the ball after they catch it, or making it bounce twice before it gets to them. It's important that you require underhand tosses, especially if you're playing after the ball has bounced, because that reflects what happens in a real dinking situation. I do sometimes allow players to throw the ball overhand, but only if they catch the ball out of the air as a volley. Again, that's what happens in a real game of pickleball. When you receive the ball out of the air, especially if it's higher, you have a chance to hit straight ahead or even down on it. I also like mixing in the occasional fastball, which kind of represents a flick. Players learn that they have to be ready for anything, especially balls that come fast at them. One way to adjust this drill is to let one person have the paddle and one person play with their hands. Again, it could be cooperative or it could be competitive. Now, when you play where one person has the paddle and one person has the hands, I like to ask people, who do you think's going to win when we're playing in a competitive situation here? And almost always it's the person who says the one who plays with their paddles. But in my experience, it's very often the one who plays with their hands that wins. Because what happens is the person with the paddle actually hits the ball a little harder than they would like to. And their opponent ends up getting the ball out of the air quite a lot. And if I make the rule that they can then throw overhand, well, that's what they do. Throw pickleball is a great way to force people to think about how they receive the ball and how they move to it. By adjusting the rules of the activity, you can make it suitable for weaker players or stronger players. And you can make it a cooperative activity or a competitive one. So there you go. Whether you're a pickleball coach or you want to do some training, why not get out on the court and try some throw pickleball? Play around with it, make up your own rules, see what works. Again, pickleball is primarily a sport about moving, about chasing the ball. And by taking the paddle out of your hands, well, it really forces you to do that.